Hello, welcome. My name is Hoshiko, and today we're talking about the basics of the Dehancer Photo plugin. You may have seen that I did a few videos recently on Dehancer Pro for video and Resolve. You can find them in the video description down below if you're curious about those. But it got me curious about the Dehancer Photo plugin and its similarities and differences. Thank you to Dehancer for giving me an access code so I could give it a spin and make this video. If you are familiar at all with Dehancer for video, then I think the usage of Dehancer for photo will be really welcoming and easy to use. That would not really have been my exact opinion a few weeks ago before a major beta update that they put out, and that actually caused me to rewrite this video entirely. Before that beta update, while it was very functional, I thought there was something in the experience that was lacking, especially after going really in depth with Dehancer Pro for video. But before I could even say that in an overview video, they released this new beta update that addressed essentially every lacking area or disappointment that I had, and it really brought the photo plugin into a tool of its own. And I think that goes to show that their team is pretty constantly making updates, improvements, and feature additions for the software and just generally advancing it, which I really appreciate. As I noted in my Dehancer Pro overview, they are very responsive to feedback and bug reports. So responsive, in fact, that when I found a bug in the beta, they did work with me directly to figure it out. And so what you're going to be seeing here are screen captures of the beta version, but I hope that they get all of these tools and features released in a full version soon. The beta version does have a few bugs, which is to be expected, but like I said, they are very responsive to bug reports. The things that they added in this beta release for the photo plugin include preset levels for the ISO, bloom, and halation tools, and just more tools overall that make it more comparable to the video plugin. And now I really like using this as part of my photo editing process. Beyond cinematography and video production, I do professional photography as well, and these are great tools that have added to my coloring workflow. Being able to add bloom and halation in particular are just such fun visual tools that I really love working with in my work. And as somebody who loves both film and digital, these tools are a real joy to experiment with. So today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of the plugin's interface and how to work with images with it. I use both Capture One and Affinity Photo for my photography editing, but Dehancer Photo is compatible with Photoshop and Lightroom in addition to Affinity and Capture One, which I think is really awesome. It gives you a lot more diversity of tools and software packages that you can work with. Once you've downloaded it and followed their installation guide to get the software working, you can use it as a plugin for your preferred photo editing platform. Like I already said, if you are familiar at all with the tools from Dehancer Pro for video, then these tools should now feel very familiar after this beta update. If you aren't already familiar with them, I do suggest you go online and read their guides to get started and get familiar with the concepts of these tools and their usage. Now, something I don't really like is how this plugin pairs with Capture One from a plugin standpoint. I have been terribly spoiled by Resolve's plugins. And just having to open the plugin via file browser and then work on the photo in a new window definitely is less of a seamless process. And I think it, at the same time, is still manageable and comparable to other plugin workflows. Affinity has the external window aspect, but it is a lot more of a seamless integration than Capture One. In either platform, you have to develop the photo from RAW before using Dehancer, and that is something that I hope may be able to be changed in the future so you can get the most flexibility. Even just adding a DNG option in addition to the TIFF would be useful in my opinion to retain some of the data information. Because of this, I do all of my standard corrections, color balance, sharpenings, and especially things like lens corrections and straightening before opening it into Dehancer as a final step of the process. All in all, it is not the worst workflow, but I do wish that you could retain that full raw data to work with in Dehancer. Okay, so here we are in Capture One. Now, I have a photo that I've already imported here, and this is a street photo that I took a couple years ago. And so we're going to be working with this image today. Now, like I said, for my workflow, what I do is I do my regular corrections first before taking it into Dehancer. If you're in Photoshop, Lightroom, Affinity, or Capture One, usually you're going to want to do your corrections first, especially if you're coming from a raw image. And so I already have developed this image. You can see what it looked like before. So we can see, this is the JPEG version and this is the raw version that I've developed. I've just made the colors a little bit more where I want them to be. I've adjusted the exposure a little bit. And now I'm ready to go kind of finish it off with Dehancer's tools. Going to go in here and say right click and then edit with. Now, like I mentioned, I am using a beta version of Dehancer. This is the beta that came out just a couple weeks ago. And I have found a couple bugs in it that I've reported, but I really, really like the changes they've made and the things they've added to it. So drag that over here. So this is where we're starting out. Now, everybody has different ways of working with any piece of software. For me, I like to start from a really blank slate. So I go up here to the top and look at these tools, and I find the reset all settings to defaults. And that gives me basically just the image that I already had. So with that reset, let's just give you a quick tour. So in the presets, they're already set up film stock and film printing choices. So for example, if you go into here and you do the Vision 3 with the 2383 printing, so that is basically now applied to the image. And if we go over here, we can see which tools it's actually using in it. So it is using the 2383 print film. So printing the image with the color beyond just using the film colors. Now, there are a ton of presets in here. If you look through here now, one thing that I think that they should improve with Dehancer is these menus. I don't like having to navigate this with the down arrow. I think it'd be better if there was a scroll bar. I don't know if that's a personal, preference, but yeah, you can just use the up and down arrows to scroll through a whole bunch of different pre-made film looks. And then if you want to adjust it at all, you just go over here and you turn on the tool that you want to use, and then you can do things like the impact, you can change the white point, we can change the tonal range up and down. There are film developers, you can boost the contrast, you can change how the gamma actually looks. There's a lot of different things you can do, but like I said, I usually start with a blank slate as close to what just came out of Capture One for me. If you also make a edit that you like, you can save it as a preset using this tool right here, create a new preset with current settings. There are restore to last use settings, there's undo last edits, there's pretty much all of the standard tools. You can even zoom in with the one-to-one up here to get more fine image viewing ability. You can turn off the histogram that's at the bottom. Also, it's a relatively simple interface to work with. Like I said, pretty much the biggest complaint that I have with the interface is not having a scroll bar for this menu and not having a scroll bar for this menu. So that means if you have a bunch of these open, you can't scroll down in here. You have to close a higher up one to actually get access to it. But by and large, it's a really easy menu system to work with. So let's actually just now work on this image. So I'm going to just start with the original. I'm going to have all of my settings reset. The original button and the reset all settings really is pretty much the same thing, just two different ways to access it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to switch over to the Films tab. Now this we're going to turn on, and this is now going to let us choose from this drop-down menu a film stock. If you want to see previews of it, just like in the presets, you can scroll through these with the up and down arrow keys and see what different ones can look like. Now, these are just the film stocks. We don't have any of the other tools like the developer, the compression, the film grain. We don't have any of those turned on. We're just looking at the film emulation colors right now, which also means that this is a really flexible program to use because you can do just the colors. Or if you just wanted film grain on your photo, you can get really nice looking film grain. You can choose the custom, you can choose any of the different variations, from 8mm up to 65mm. And then, so if you want to just, narrow what you're looking for down, from the top menu here, you can choose various types. So like if we want to do an instant format, and then we can see that 4 different types of instant films. So let's take a look at Polaroid Type 100 for this image. Now, I don't really think that this fits the image that I'm going for. I really want something that works with those colors, but I think that it is interesting to look at a bunch of different options here to see what fits and what you like. You could plan your entire photo shoot with a certain stock emulation in mind. I think that would be a really good idea to do. So let's just look through the color positive films here. I like a lot of these, like the Kodachromes and the Ektachromes. I think the Ektachrome here is actually really gorgeous, especially with those blues and teal tones. So let me just work with this for now. Just like in the full video version, you have a push-pull, so we can adjust the contrast, some of the brightness, and definitely how the colors are affected by the developing process with the push-pull. Let me switch to a different one to just show you that. So yeah, so if we do like a Fuji, you can look at this Fuji Color one. You can really see some of the differences in actually the tone and color quality as you scroll through. I really liked the Ektachrome, so we're going to go back to that. So I don't really like the 8mm ISO for this. I'm going to go with just a very standard 35mm, and I'm not really wanting it to be super, super grainy. So I'm going to go for a low 50 ISO. And so kind of my preview, you can see the difference here, and you can see some of that grain kind of coming in, especially in these areas. As I mentioned already, go to Dehancer's website and read through the documentation they have. They have a lot of really good descriptions, and they have a really interesting write-up on how film grain works for film. The actual granular structure for film is what actually is holding the image, and so that's what they're trying to emulate here. So you will always have some grain, basically. Even if you go down to those 50mm ISOs, because it's trying to mimic that same structural aspect to real film. Okay, so now we have film grain in there. I really like the film compression, and it just, kind of dulls out those whites a little bit, gives you a little bit more range. But I'm going to actually adjust it back because I want it to remain pretty bright. I like to do the color boost, just have a little bit more to it and make that contrast just a little high. If you need to reset any settings, just double click and it will reset it to its original zeroed default. Just like in the Resolve version, you have the film color head here, and you can use that to do subtractive saturation. So if I wanted those blues to be a little darker, I can actually take away some of the blue from the image and be adding in yellow to then make the whites a little more yellow and these blues a little darker in tone. So I like that. I think that that's looking great for how I like to edit. And then the things that I also like to do are the bloom and halation. Now, for me, halation can get really strong really fast. And here, let me just show you what I did here. I chose the 35mm option here, and it puts it all on as the default 35mm. Now, I don't think that I like it when it's this intense. So what I usually do is I then switch over to custom. It leaves those settings as set from the preset, and then I can actually just go down here and change the impact of it. If you want to see it, you can go to the mask mode and you can see where it's being affected. And so I usually kind of limit the sources a little bit more. So it's just kind of the brightest areas. I reduce the local diffusion just a little bit, and I definitely reduce the global diffusion. And then that hue you can also manipulate. And so then taking that off. Now, without halation, with halation. And it just kind of gives a little bit more of a glow to some of these white and bright edges. I can probably have it go up just a little bit more. Something along those lines. So without it, with it, it's subtle, but it adds a certain nature to the image, and it definitely adds something of that filmic-like quality because the halation is an aspect of the structure of film. And then bloom is usually where I go next. Same thing, I'm gonna start with a 35mm, then I'm gonna go to custom. I'm gonna look at the mask mode because that is a lot of blooming, and I think that's a lot for what I like. I really do like blooming, but there's a limit. I have just a little bit more softness to some of those edges that are coming off here, especially those bright edges. And so basically we can like zoom in and see before, after, and you can really see that grain structure coming in, and you can see the halation and the blooming of those highlights. Now with the film grain, you can also go to custom and you can reduce how much color noise that has to it. You can, really change things around. I like to lower it a little bit, but as you can see, each tool has about 15 different settings that you can have for it. And there's more than 40 different film stocks you can have. So the combinations that you can have for your image are really quite endless. So before and then after. And I do think that this image is now a little darker than I want it to be. So I'm just going to pop into the source and I'm going to add 0.1 to the exposure and brighten it just ever so slightly back up. If you do have a lot of fringing, you can use defringing here, and that will help out with that issue. This was taken on a little tiny Olympus pen, I believe it's a pen 1. So a camera from about 2009, which I love to use for street photography. So I'm already starting with kind of a slightly older format of camera, and then to be able to kind of impart this film-like quality through emulation onto that older style of camera look, I really like it for my workflow. So once you're done choosing your stock and then doing any other adjustments that you want or need, since each one is individual, you could bring your photo in here and just do film grain or just do bloom or just do a stock color emulation. There is so much flexibility. But once you're all done, all you do is you press OK. And it brings your image back right into Capture One. And so basically between that and the JPEG, we can definitely see how that has changed it. But then between even, this is the Dehancer version, and this is just what I had in Capture One, moving it towards that film-like quality definitely adds something to the image and is just another tool in your toolkit for color grading your photographic images. I think that this is something that works well for a lot of my workflow. Does it work for every single possible combination of workflow? No, but neither does any other tool also. This is like choosing a filter or choosing a lens. We do things for creative reasons, and this is a really great creative tool to get different looks for your color and to emulate film. So if you want to do the same thing in Affinity, basically you have to open your image up. Now this one's a JPEG, it's not a raw photo. Once again, from a few years ago. After installing it, of course, basically what you're going to do is going to go to Filters, Plugins, and then find it here. And it's going to open up just the same as we did with Capture One. And we're going to be able to work on this image the same way. Now, you'll notice that since I just was working with Dehancer in Capture One, even though it's a cross-platform, Dehancer has saved what I just did as my current last edit. So if I do the original image and then my last edits, that's the same grade that we used in Dehancer for Capture One. So if we wanted to develop our own complete style, for basically emulating what would be like if we shot on film and then developed a certain way to our own tastes, you can build your own custom profiles that then you use on your images. So that's your basic guide for getting started and looking at a few different tools in Dehancer. It is very easy to use. So as you can see, if you are familiar with the Dehancer video plugins, the tools are very similar and you should be able to find your way around in no time. But if you are completely new, it shouldn't be that much of a learning curve menu-wise, especially if you go read the Dehancer blog's guides. I really like the color preview thumbnails for the various film stock options, as well as the ways to sort the film stock types. Both of these help address the minor frustration I had with Dehancer Pro for Resolve, where scrolling that menu without any context left you guessing what a stock might look like. And I really like how that is not the case here. I do hope they do a few quality of life improvements, like making it so that you can scroll easily in the menus instead of having to open and close sections to see various attributes for your image, or have to navigate with the up and down arrow keys. I also hope that they add more ISO options for various stills formats, maybe large formats in particular. And I think it'd be really great to, in the future, have a way to compare two film stocks side by side to see what's best for your image. I think that'd be super useful. And I should mention that it seems quite stable in its released version, and that the beta was stable for the most part until I had some sort of error that happened that caused Capture One not to open Dehancer properly. Now, this did not affect Affinity at all. I reported this issue to their team and they worked with me with it, but I'm not sure if it was more on Capture One's end or Dehancer's end, but I kind of think that it can be expected because this is a beta release, it's not a full release. Uninstalling and reinstalling the software twice seemed to fix the issue, so I think that if they can resolve that before their final release, it's not really an issue to be concerned about. Overall, I have really liked my time so far in Dehancer Photo, and I think the distinct colors of film emulation add to the workflow that I already had in place. As I said in my Dehancer Pro video overview, this plugin will not eliminate your need to understand, at very least, color basics. And the more you understand about color grading and editing and your own personal style will make this tool more useful than trying to use it to avoid learning those things. As I talk about frequently, it's about how we as artists use tools rather than some specific property of a tool in particular. And I think that's really important to reiterate here. Let me know if you have any questions about Dehancer Photo. You can leave those in the comments down below. If you want to save 10% when purchasing any of Dehancer's licenses, you can use my affiliate coupon code THCINEMATOGRAPHY at checkout. This really helps support my channel and these videos. If you like photography videos like this one, please give the video a like to help me with the YouTube algorithm and reaching new audiences like yourself. And you can subscribe for upcoming videos about tools and techniques for photographic image making of all sorts, from photography to cinematography. You can join me over on Patreon or find me on all sorts of social media websites. All of those links are down in the video's description. This week, tell somebody in your life that you care about them, make some art that you love, and have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Peace. For one, an Affinity Photo for photo photo. So today I'm going to be